Hey everybody, what's up? As you can see, I'm here at the Grand Archives, and I trimmed this video quite a bit. The first probably 4 or 5 minutes of this video consisted of me trying to find this party, and nearly everything in the level's been killed except for the ascent here to the Twin Princes, and I've seen them summoning phantoms. And of course, you always worry that maybe they're coming up from the Dragon Slayer armor boss fight, but I suppose if that were the case, I wouldn't have actually invaded here. So they're undoubtedly going for the Twin Princes. So I kind of decided I'm going to chill back here and try to come up behind them as they make their ascent, because they're no doubt going to be expecting me to be in front of them among the mob. So I'm hoping I can kind of launch a sneak attack and take them by surprise. Instead, I'm the one that ends up being taken by surprise because they're obviously coming up here for the angels. So I know there's at least 3 of them, and I do not want to get surrounded down there. That was a nice jump attack. So the party comes up, and you can see everybody pulls up and stops except for the host. Now that's bad form. They should be following here, but look at what happens, man. Oh man, he just gets obliterated. Yeah, I mean, the Phantoms were smart to not to want to come up here, but when you're with a host and you see the host commit to a stupid course of action like that, the smart thing to do is to come get his back. I mean, there's no advantage in hanging back. So this guy invaded me, killed me, and threw shit at me. So I threw on the dried fingers hoping he would come back in and invade me, and I actually put shit on my item bar, which I never ever do. But I was bound and determined to get this guy. I knew he was going to parry there, so I circled around and tried to backstab him. And here I bait out the parry. This time I'm successful with the backstab. But as far as I'm concerned, like, I'm on a mission for this guy. That was some nasty phantom range there. I just barely get into my hyper armor frames there at the end. Mission completion, I got my vengeance. That felt awesome. So a lot of these invasion videos were way longer, but they just weren't that interesting, so I tried to trim them up. And there I saw the actual Sunbro behind me, which I missed at the time that I was playing. I think Sir Grey Fox mentioned it the other day, but the curved greatswords are becoming far more popular. They are really a great invasion weapon. They're great at dealing with crowds. You get good hyper armor, and they've got a fantastic running attack. You know, I think that's really the thing that makes this weapon so unique. For most weapons that get hyper armor, and hit as hard as these weapons do, don't have very good running attacks. That's typically one of the things that makes them poor choices in a lot of contexts. But the running attack is really what makes this weapon so solid. Now, in my experience, this weapon can be pretty effectively neutralized by somebody who's good with a shield. Like a good straight sword and shield user is very difficult to face with this build. At least for me personally it is. I'd be curious what other folks think. I was actually, Saint Riot invaded me the other day, and he had his sword and board build and ended up wrecking me pretty badly. And I think I lost half my health before I realized that I needed to stop using this weapon. But facing off against Saint's sword and board build is always a little terrifying to me, because he can parry, but he's got a shield with high stability. So you don't want to just start blasting into a shield, or you'll get set up parried. But if you're not aggressive enough, you allow him to kind of dictate the tempo. And anyway, he's just a very good player and difficult to face. So here I've got a pretty good choke point with these guys. They've got to come through here. There's really no other good way for them to proceed. Having the mages throwing the wax behind me and the thralls throwing the bombs is a great spot for me to be in. I think I mentioned it too. I've gotten quite a bit better at free aiming my fire bombs. Probably 4 months ago, I couldn't do it at all. I would never throw bombs unless I were actually locked on. And I've been practicing a lot with throwing these unlocked. It's just a great way to chip away at people. And it's funny, you'll see maybe in some of the later builds, I've got my shield out to go for parries, but the more I play, man, I go for parries less and less and less. I mean, I'm almost at a point where I'm ready to just give up my parry shield. With the Phantom dead now, I know this guy's mine. One of the unfortunate side effects of this game kind of declining in popularity is that there's only a few really good places to invade in there. I see the mage spawn in right there, so I know the party's got to be across the way. And I take a look over there and I see not only the party, but another invader. So I've got to hop to it and try to give him some backup. One of the classic frustrations in invading large groups is getting another invader that comes in to help you, but they're more of a hindrance than a help. And there is really no feeling quite like going up against like a 4v2 with another good invader, because I'll take a 4v2 with another good invader any day of the week. Like, I feel like that is an eminently winnable fight most of the time. Here we have a few problems because obviously he's using the Great Lance and it makes it hard for us to avoid hitting each other. There's enough Phantoms right now that we can kind of split up. And I'm able to kill one Phantom there and then stun the other one long enough for my buddy to come in and clean up the mess. So we went from 4 down to 2. And I decided to come around on the back here and try to kind of squeeze in between the two of us to try to minimize the likelihood of us hitting each other. But here, I think in a minute, pardon me, I think in a minute I switched to my straight sword because it's just too hard for us to avoid hitting each other. My buddy clips me a couple times. I'm trying to kind of circle around and stay out of the way. You know, I sometimes dream of a day when hosts and Phantoms have to worry about hitting each other. That way I think it would be a huge, huge change to the game. And really, I'm kind of surprised that they don't have that already. I mean, it would seem to be in keeping with the spirit of these Souls games that they would be able to hit each other. So the host obviously disappeared, no doubt gone back to the bonfire to try and summon his team. So he and I come running down here. And I'm not going to waste any time screwing around here. I'm going to get right after this guy because I don't want the army coming back. Love invasions like that, man. It makes me feel so, so good. I think I actually recorded that during Saint's stream, so that may have been one of the other players watching Saint's stream and invading along with him. You know, back maybe 3 months ago or so when Saint first started streaming on Twitch, there weren't a whole lot of people watching. There was sort of a core cadre of folks, you know, 15, 20 people. And so if he were in a given area and you were to invade, the chances of you invading him, or if you had the area boss undefeated and you were to use the dried fingers, the likelihood of him invading you was quite high. I mean, in an evening of streaming 4 to 6 hours, he would invade me 3 or 4 times. I would invade him a number of times. But his stream has gotten so popular, and understandably so. It's super fun and entertaining. I can go an entire stream and never be invaded by him and never see him. It's really gotten awesome. But the cool thing is, with so many talented invaders in the stream and invading in the same area, the likelihood of you being paired with a good quality invader is really, really high. Another funny thing, and we'll talk more about this in a little bit, but I've noticed that, I was reminded actually of a quote. There was a quote from Brian Eno talking about a band by the name of Velvet Underground, kind of an avant-garde band from, I think, the 60s. And his comment was something along the lines of, only 30,000 people bought that first album, but everyone that bought it started a band, meaning it was very influential. And I sometimes feel the same way about Saint streams, in the sense that the people that are on his streams, like every one of them seems to have a YouTube channel. They're all very interesting sort of Dark Souls 3 players in all their own different ways. And I've really been surprised and impressed by just how many people I've run into that, comment on a video of mine or something, and I go and check them out and realize they're a YouTuber with 200, 2,000 subscribers. And so I've learned so much about this game in the past couple of months, seeing so many different people and so many varied approaches. And this is an example of what bad invaders do sometimes. So this guy, obviously, he's got an undead hunter charm on him, but he sees me low in health, he sees me vulnerable, and he unwisely comes charging after me, and ends up paying the price. And I think any invader who sees that can absolutely relate to what he was doing. I think every one of us have unwisely tried to press things too far, tried to close somebody out, and ended up dying. So this here, this Zoran asshole, this was a group of gankers that I had invaded twice previously, and they had just absolutely crushed me. The 2 times that I had invaded them previously, almost all the PvE was dead. And here I was hoping that maybe they hadn't seen me, but they did. So I'm trying to get out of here and hoping to get another invader here to help me out. So I come up here on the bridge and I check to the left really quickly to see if the Corvian's there, because in one of the previous invasions I had jumped down here and the Corvian was already dead, and unfortunately they kind of surrounded me and killed me. But with the Corvian still alive, they're obviously unwilling to jump down here, and I see another invader has joined, and I don't recognize the name. As I learned later, it was a player by the name, and I hope I pronounce his name correctly, Dang It JM, and he has a YouTube channel I found with lots of great content, and it's always fun when you find somebody you didn't know previously, excuse me, because you can go through all their old videos, and it's this awesome just group of videos, and you have lots of ways to be entertained for a long period of time. But I see it looks like they're giving him the business, the invader, so I'm kind of coming up here to try and give him a helping hand. I'm hoping this blue thinks I don't see him and tries to do a plunging attack so I can punish him. So let's get him with a turn and burn here. And I'm able to close him out real quickly. So now I'm racing up here to try and help out before the red dies. And one thing that's interesting, I didn't notice it at the time, but they had a dried finger running. I'm sorry, not a dried finger, a seed. And then the seed ended, and then they immediately fired off another one. So there's one running right now, and the trees here are kind of using their frost attack on me. Now the seed's worn out, but yet the trees are still kind of trying to attack me, although it's not actually doing any damage to me. But unfortunately, I'm worried that it's alerting the host and his phantoms to my presence. So Dang It JM gets another opportunity. I know he's obviously been beaten by them at least once. I've been beaten by them several times, so I think both of us have a pretty big incentive to get after these guys. So I'm thinking this is probably about as good an opportunity as I'm going to have to get some vengeance against these gankers. And I go down to start making my move, But I realize the other invader here has a great bow, so I figure I'm just going to kind of hang out and maybe provide some cover while he rains hellfire down on them. But he seems to kind of abandon that course of action. So I know there's at least a host and 2 phantoms, and they've got Way of Blue on, so either now or at some point in the future they may be joined by a 4th. And I see him kind of make his assault, so I'm going to follow along. I'm worried about getting plunged attacked here, so I kind of roll a bit. And here they come. And I know this guy's aggressive in the Smo outfit, so I kind of bait that. And here I go while my friend's in iframes, but unfortunately my timing's bad, and I catch him. Here I have an unlocked backstab. I think that's actually one of my first. I'm able to catch him panic rolling. And here they use that miracle, and it almost kills me. And if I had been expecting that charge attack, I could have parried it. And here I get the lag backstab of the sentry. I think that was probably like a 6-second delay. And so now we got this guy. I just don't want him running on us. So I'm kind of providing some backup. I'm going to let this guy kind of take the lead. But when he tries to roll out of here, I'm able to finish him off. And that was awesome, man. I felt so good to take those guys out because, of course, not only did they kill me, but they pointed down and threw shit. All the classic ganker techniques. So here we are at Dragonkin Mausoleum again. I noticed that Phantom's name, that ALM something or other, because it'll come in handy in a little bit. So I have the Obscuring Ring on, and initially I think I'm going to attack these guys, but then I think better of it. I'm kind of trying to figure out how I want to come at these guys because I don't want to get pinned back here without an opportunity to get away. And I had long wondered whether if one had the Obscuring Ring on, if one were to buff one's weapon, whether your opponents could see that. And I found an old Reddit article where some guy had gone through and sort of methodically tested all kinds of different things, estusing, using green blossoms, using buffs, etc. And he said that they cannot see your buff. So I'm assuming that's true. And so I've started buffing even when I'm wearing the Obscuring Ring, which I had avoided doing just because I didn't want to give my position away. If anyone thinks differently, if you think that does give your position away, please let me know in the comments. I know I've actually had some questions about the builds that I'm using, so maybe I'll talk about that for just a moment. This guy is pretty much a dex build. I think he's got 20 strength, thereabouts, almost 40 dex, and then I'm pretty high on vigor, about 36 vigor. Stamina is one of those things I've kind of, I make a sacrifice on. I think I only have about 25 stamina. Which hurts, especially with a curved greatsword, but at soul level 90, where this build is, you just have to make some sacrifices with your build. And then I also have 15 faith and 14 attunement so that I can use Tears of Denial. It's kind of a question in my mind right now whether that's a good trade-off, because I don't remember which build I started with, but if I were to respec and I were willing to give up Tears of Denial, that's probably almost 10 levels that I could pick up between the attunement going lower and the faith going lower. But you know, Tears of Denial has a lot of value, so I'm not quite ready to give up on it yet, but it's definitely something I've been thinking about. It at soul level 90, Tears of Denial is an expensive miracle to cast if you're not a pure faith build. So I'm just kind of like, I'm kind of content to just chip away at their Estus, especially with the Phantom. He's coming in, I'm attacking him, I'm hitting him once or twice. He has to go back and Estus. So I know he's got to be at a point where he doesn't have a whole lot left. And so my strategy at this point is basically to force the Phantom to run out of Estus. I can kill him. And then the host will be mine. You can see he's not healing, so that's probably a good sign. Get caught up in a flurry of R1 spam there. Here the Phantom chooses to make a statement. Honestly, I just didn't know what to think. Like, dude, you have no health left. You have no Estus. I've been whipping you and the host's ass up until this point. And so now he just kind of hangs back and sort of leaves the host on his own. And I'm not really sure what his game plan is. If he's worried about dying and me getting the Estus, he'd be better off just kind of black crystalling out. So now the host just kind of decides he's going to make a run for it, which to kind of question the intelligence of that decision, especially with all the PvE that's out here. Especially this section coming up here with the dragon, would be dangerous to try to approach at low health. Can't figure out what he's doing here, and then of course I realized too late exactly what he's doing. He's disconnecting. So the Phantom from the last fight, I found his red sign here, which I thought was sort of interesting. So I thought, especially after the point down, I needed to summon this guy in and give him an ass whooping. So I hit his red sign, wait a moment, and I see that he has actually been successfully summoned into my world. So I'm waiting for him to show up, and I wait probably maybe 40 seconds or so, and I don't find him, I don't see anything, and then he dies. So I don't know if he knew who I was and just killed himself, or what happened. He made a mistake. I'm just not sure, but I thought that was hilarious. And this here is the final invasion. I see it seems to be a solo host by himself, kind of doing battle here with these, as I've called them, rock lobsters. I'm not sure what these guys are actually called. And you can see he's smart enough to try to kick him off the ledge. A solo host, so I give him a minute. Give him a friendly wave, and he decides he's going to start edge walking at me. So here he kicks me, and he successfully lands an attack, which is sort of interesting because in my experience, when somebody kicks me, as long as you don't try to panic roll out of the kick and get roll caught, you can, in my experience, always roll before the attack lands, especially with something slower like a halberd. And I don't know if he's got this a blood infused, because he's building up quite a bit of bleed on me with this weapon. And there he wisened up and knew I was rolling automatically for the second R1, and he held it and was able to roll catch me. So I decided to go with a bit of a faster weapon. And here he's got an offhand straight sword, probably a broadsword. So anybody that's got like an offhand straight sword to back up a build with like a halberd is somebody that's put some time into the game. And obviously he hasn't healed up until this point, but like so many players that decide they're going to have an honor fight, they're willing to have an honor fight just so long as it means that they don't lose. This is a guy that's good enough that he probably wins the majority of his fights. He assumes he's going to beat me, and then when he doesn't, decides he's all done. And he had been doing an R1 so consistently there, I really thought for sure he would fall victim to the setup parry. I'm able to close him out. They kind of mock his edge walk here, and I'm not very good at it, as you can see. Hey guys, so thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care now.